Subscribe to get notified when we drop new episodes.
Follow us on Twitter and on Facebook at WTAE Podcast.
Thank you for joining us today. This is Worth the Admission Podcast. My name is B. Frank.
And I'm Travis.
And here we talk about many things, movies, TV, and the ever-changing pop culture.
We have a lot to talk about today, sir.
Yes, we do. I'm really excited.
We actually have things. After a few slow weeks, where we finally started to pick up. I think things finally defrosted over there in Hollywood, and we finally get a chance to see some new things. We got a few new trailers this week. We got a lot of stuff though. Where do you want to start off at?
Well, I was watching a couple TV shows this week and weekend. I honestly watched a lot of TV shows this weekend. I caught up on Game of Thrones again, and watched Future Man Season 2 out on Hulu. Really funny. If you haven't watched it, check it out. It is very vulgar and dirty.
I see. I love that as well too. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out. I just started watching Grand Tour Season 2. I'm a car guy, so I know I have that. I enjoyed those shows. But, I mean, it's just been a lot of the same, trying to catch up. I mean, Flash premiered this week. I still haven't got a chance to catch up on that. But there was a lot of things. I mean, we had that new Fox show, The Passage. Yep, I watched the first episode of that. I really dug it. I couldn't get a real feel yet, so before we give a full review on that, I figured we'll maybe get in a few weeks before we actually really talk about it and see how it really plays out. Because that was one of the things. I enjoyed it, but I feel like I didn't get as much as I wanted to out of it, and I have more questions.
It had a very interesting feel. I mean, the relationship between the guy and the girl is going to be something that I know that it's going to be explored a lot over the course of the season. But yeah, my roommate actually says that he gives a show 3 episodes. If after 3 episodes you're not hooked, then you probably won't be.
That seems fair. I can go with that. Yeah, it's just a lot of things. I watch cheesy shows. I watch reality TV shows as well, too. So, I mean, that's really what I've been catching up on.
Bachelor.
I know. Yeah, get off me, all right? That's my wife and I's show. Leave me alone. But there's plenty of things coming up. I mean, I just saw the trailer for Gabriel Iglesias drop. Speaking of all the trailers that dropped, which is funny. But Gabriel Iglesias has a new comedy comedy special coming out on the 29th on Netflix. So I'm looking forward to that. I've just been patiently waiting because there's a few movies and things that are coming out soon. But I'm kind of waiting to see because they just dropped these on us at the last second.
Especially, I mean, here in less than 8 weeks, we're going to have... Less than 6 weeks, we're going to have Captain Marvel. So, Glass really opened up 2019, and I think the next 2 weeks are kind of slow, but it's going to start ramping up, and it's pretty much going to be a heavy 2019 for movies.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Speaking of getting away from movies, I know you watched Punisher Season 2, right?
I did. It came out yesterday, as of when we're recording this, and I finished it today, the day after. It was really good. Very violent, just like the first season. The story it had a bit deeper of a story. It didn't focus on his family as much, obviously, but it did bring in elements from the first season that were really cool. And the end was so satisfying, but still left me wanting more.
So with this, I know basically Netflix is canceling all the Marvel TV shows. Did they come to a closing point with this? Is this one where did it wrap up the way it is, or did they leave it open for a season 3 if they decide to bring those characters back, obviously on a different streaming service?
It didn't bring any cliffhanger, which I kind of enjoyed, but it did wrap up the story that it was telling throughout season 2, and it didn't give us any more about a potential 3rd season. The last clip, the last 10 seconds, is just very satisfying as a Punisher fan, and that alone, if it doesn't get picked up, is unfortunate, but satisfying.
Well, I mean, speaking of superhero movies, I know we have the big news on Aquaman crossing $1 billion at the box office, which is huge.
Yes, did it a couple days ago. I mean, I've been saying for weeks that if it didn't hit $1 billion before Glass came out, I didn't think it would, and I was glad to see that it basically hit it 2 days before it came out.
Well, speaking with the news, we have a bunch of trailers that came out this week.
Yes, we had John Wick 3, Parabellum, if you want to get specific. Very action-packed, very interesting choice of music.
Yeah, I there was a few scenes I really dug in it. Now, mind you, I've only seen the first one. I have not seen the second one. I know action movies, they're hit or miss. I didn't even know if I was going to enjoy the first one.
Did you know that if you count how many people he kills, the total comes to 69?
No, I did not know that.
We counted the first time we watched it, and that's the number we came to. I don't think we counted on the second one, but it was more than that.
Well, now you got to shoot to watch the second one and count the kills.
I will have to now that the third one's coming out.
Yeah, that looks. I mean, it looks exciting. My favorite scene in that trailer, at least, where they're all on the motorcycles and they have the samurai swords out, and he's literally ripping people apart. He's trying to fight them off. I thought that was the coolest part of the trailer. I like the music. I mean, I like the franchise. I think it's really cool. I think it's cool to see Keanu Reeves now as an action star, or you see him in this role. He seems like such a badass.
Yeah, especially after his Matrix stint. He was kind of action movies, but he wasn't big action movies, and then just kind of came out big wang swinging on the John Wicks.
Well, speaking of other trailers, we also get into killing me here. You will not break me.
We did get into some Game of Thrones, which I'm really excited to talk about.
Yes, you are a guru on Game of Thrones. I have seen every episode, but I've only seen them once because it's a lot of TV, and I also started way back, so I was 3-4 seasons behind when I jumped on the bandwagon of Game of Thrones. So it was a lot to catch up, but those episodes are so long. It's really hard to divulge that much time, and you have to pay attention too. It's not one of those shows you can put on in the background.
Exactly. And that's something that's very difficult for me to do too, is I can't think of it as a background show because every moment is important. I mean, in the first episode alone, the first time Jamie and Ned shake hands, it's a close-up on their right hand. Little things like that you don't notice the first time through, you're like, oh, I pick up on that. I understand that. You have that Captain America moment of, wait, I get that reference. And I'm really excited that it's kind of mid-April. I mean, April's just going to be a humongous month. You got Shazam coming out. You got Sabrina coming back. You have my birthday. And then you got, of course, Avengers Endgame at the end of the month. So I'm excited for April. And did you get a chance to check out the teaser trailer for Game of Thrones too?
Yeah, I did get a chance to check it out. Obviously, I remember certain things. You're my expert. You're my go-to on this because you've seen the episodes and you just rewatched the series like a week ago. So you're very fresh on everything that happens. But I remember seeing the episode the little clip that we got during the Golden Globes for the HBO TV spot, and then we got the trailer just this last week. I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to doing the podcast, which we're going to be doing soon. We'll get into that in a few, but I want to get your thoughts on the trailer.
It was cool. It was a very simple teaser trailer. It was more than we got the first time, which was just fire and ice clashing on basically a giant Westeros chessboard. And to see the actual teaser was really cool because, first of all, I gotta say, Jon is looking like a king. Kinghood suits him. He looks worn, he looks battle-worn, but his look is becoming very king-like. And that started, at the end of Season 6, but it's really obviously coming to fruition now that we're going to learn all that information. And then for him, Sansa, and Arya to walk up on their statues with the various voiceovers from Ned and Catelyn and Lyanna, you kind of get this overwhelming feeling of, yes, it is coming to an end. And then you see them standing in front of their stone figures, and you're like, okay. And then you literally get the chills when the White Walker fog comes in and freezes that feather.
When you're looking at the statues and you're seeing the voiceovers and you're getting that feel, they don't sugarcoat that this is the end. And I kind of like that. Because I know they're working on a prequel series, and I know they're doing other things as well, too, that are going to happen in the Game of Thrones universe. But for this, when you're looking at this aspect, this actually really has a really cool closure feel, especially when you're seeing that, because I think for people like me who are casual fans of the show, like you're a hardcore fan. I mean, you now have seen the show multiple times and get it a lot more, and you grasp it. But for me, when you're looking at that, you kind of remember those bits and pieces of the story that come up that gets us to this point, which for me is a nice little refresher.
Well, and the cast is obviously fantastic, but Kit Harington, who plays Jon Snow, cried multiple times on set just because it's very physically and mentally heavy. Like, there's a lot that goes into this, obviously, and one of the quotes I read in an article said that he was talking about everybody in the cast, like, everybody is really excited that we're at this point, but we're also excited to get done with this point because it is just so heavy. It is so much. And so just to have that weight lifted off is, I'm sure, going to be very, very pleasing for them.
You look at it here as in terms of they go away to remote parts of the world. A lot of them are together. I mean, they're all over the place when they shoot this. All over Europe. This is like a Marvel movie. It's like a superhero movie where it's a truly grinding and taxing, especially for how long they've been doing it. Like a lot of how long the MCU's been around. It's one of those things where when these characters are getting ready to say goodbye, it's a part of them now. I mean, that's what they're going to be known for and typecasted for a very, very long time. I mean, especially, I guess, for us American people who don't know that British actors, their lives go on and just like everybody else's after a show. But that's how we remember them. So, just like, Harry Potter and everything else, they get typecasted for life. But it's a really war for them to go and do this. And for a show that's very dialogue heavy and is so story driven, you really feel a part of it. I think that's why the show's been successful for that long.
Apart from the fact that it's just written so well, on my list is definitely to listen to the audiobooks for all the books that are out and will hopefully come out. But the show is interwoven so well. All the characters are very well defined. They have good stories. I mean, all of Westeros and the story of the Game of Thrones is in itself a fantastic story. And to be able to retell that in such a way is breathtaking. And I think that's, again, one of the other reasons that this is such a big show.
I mean, with us going to be doing this podcast now, or the side commentary podcast with the Game of Thrones, we're also doing our True Detective podcast as well too, which we just did this last week, and we covered the first week or the first 2 episodes, and we're going to be continuing doing that every week as well too. So pretty much that's going to bleed in from one series into another.
I'm really excited because obviously this is a big season for Game of Thrones, and it is a big season for True Detective as well. I mean, they didn't even think True Detective was going to come back at all. And then after like 4 years, they finally drop a 3rd season, and it is a very big deal. It's a very good story. So if you haven't watched it yet, definitely check it out. The first 2 episodes are out, and it comes out every Sunday.
Yep, I think we're going to try and get that podcast out every Friday.
Every Friday of the week that it comes out. So it kind of acts as a refresher for you going into the next episode.
And shows like this are going to need their own time for us to be able to unpack and process everything that happens, especially with True Detective and especially with Game of Thrones too. But now we get to the big news of the week. I think a little trailer came out. Some character, I forget.
A little Spidey
trailer came out. And you and I watched it together. I think we both seen it way too many times to count.
I've watched it 6 times today.
I probably about the same today. I wanted a little bit refreshed before we recorded too, so I'd make sure I watched it. It's fantastic. It's everything I think we hoped for, and I mean, there's a lot to be desired, but I think they gave us enough off this first trailer to honestly to be really excited. And I don't think I know how much more I need to see before the movie comes out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would be okay if that was all I saw. Obviously, we're going to end up seeing more, but it was a fantastic teaser. Aunt May being cool and Team Spidey is a very different element than anyone is used to.
And they don't hide that. That is the opening of the trailer, is her just being right behind him after he gets off stage, and it just blows my mind that she was okay with it. Because obviously at the very end of Homecoming, you see her and she goes, "What the?" and it cuts out at the very end. And to see it kind of pick up right from there to her to answer that question is really cool.
Well, and then her little moment with Happy, when he's talking about her dress being new, and she's like, "Yeah, how did you know?" And Peter's just over there like, "What's going on?
What just happened?"
And it seems like Happy could be taking the role of Tony Stark in the "I'm going to come after your aunt" route. But that's another thing that we kind of don't see is Tony Stark, which I've got some thoughts on it. I guess theories more than anything.
It's a safe space. If you want to wait till the end to theorize, or do you want to go through the trailer first?
I guess we'll go through the trailer.
Okay. Well, this actually takes place. This actually takes place after Avengers Endgame that we've found out, and
it's going to start moments after the end of Endgame. So,
and this takes
whatever happens there is going to lead into very heavily.
Yeah, and this takes our Spidey friend over the pond, over to Europe, which at first I wasn't sure about, and as the trailer played along, I dug it even more. I liked we got to keep a lot of the teen teen awkwardness from the high school with the kids.
Absolutely.
But also, it really divulges as it's going to leave us with a lot of questions. So, I think it's really cool that they took him out of his element a little bit more than what we're used to for a traditional Spider-Man movie.
Well, I think he's going to become the new. Sony has already said that he is going to become more integrated into the MCU, and I think he's going to take the role of the tech guy, because whatever happens, I don't think Tony is going to be around or easily accessible if he is going to live. I think that we know that Peter is smart enough, he's intelligent enough, and I think he's going to take over that tech scene.
All right, let's talk. Let's talk about the very opening scene where you see his different suit as he flies down, the pre-trailer as we saw, which is ridiculous enough as it is. We don't need a pre-trailer for a teaser. But you see him flying and
his
you see
little
the
flight
wingsuit.
suit.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool, especially seeing him flying toward the bridge. It's obviously physically interesting, but it's just going to be cool to see him do that. The last thing we got to see anything bridge-wise was him swinging under the bridge at Infinity War.
Yeah, I'll get to that other suit that we see later on that I freaked out about a little bit. But yeah, so they're over in Europe now, and we get to see a little bit more of the relationship with her and
Happy.
Yeah, and I'm kind of excited to see that because I like. Yeah, he was a bit of the first one, but I wanted to see more of him, especially because he's a character that's been around for so long that I want to see his story play out a little bit more and get to know more about him because he's been in, all the Iron Man movies, but I want to see more about that character.
Being able to get a little bit more story with Happy, I think would be cool because Jon Favreau is funny and awesome as a person, but I mean, come on, he kind of started the MCU. Him and Kevin Feige just blew people's minds
10 years ago, and look at it now.
10-year challenge. There's a moment in the trailer where Ned gets shot with an arrow in the middle of some crazy story, of course. And this is the first time we kind of realize that Peter Parker has not met Nick Fury yet, which is an interesting thing to think about. Because having dusted away, it's quite possible that not everybody that we saw dust away will be in Endgame. So it's an interesting little tidbit.
Yeah, they really that the point in the trailer where Ned, gets hit with the dart and he falls down, the vibe changes. It's a very funny.
Yeah, it's a tonal shift.
I almost felt like it was like a teen comedy, and that's kind of the way it plays out, and it feels in that first little bit of the trailer because he's not worried about being Spider-Man. The last thing we see before he leaves is that he says, I'm gonna leave. He doesn't want to be Spider-Man. He wants to be the neighborhood-friendly Spider-Man, so he leaves his suit at home, which plays a role later on, and I thought that was very interesting as well too. That when they change that, it really feels like everything comes back to that point. And obviously, we haven't seen Endgame yet, but you feel that shift of that emotion as soon as he realizes who's there.
I know Maria Hill is going to be in this movie as well, so I think it's very possible that Nick and Maria could be trying to start a kind of off the books Shield, because Peter Parker. Especially seeing Peter in Homecoming, always messaging Happy, being like, let me know, I'm ready. He is always ready. So I think turning him into a new S.H.I.E.L.D. agent would be a good way to keep him active in the MCU.
I'd like to hear some more of your theories because as we move on in the trailer a little bit further down, we start to see some different characters throughout, different villains or different figures. I know you have a theory on it, and I want to hear a little bit more about who you think they are.
So, the Elementals, comic-wise, I believe it was the early 70s. I think 74 was the last time they were really used. They were on Earth many, many years ago, and then they tried to go after this stone, and they got it, but it basically took them to a different dimension. Now, it's been said by Kevin Feige that the Marvel Cinematic Universe will be moving more toward a cosmic side of the universe after Endgame. They're exploring another side of the universe, and Spidey is very important because it is going to set the tone for the rest of these next 2 or 3 plus phases on the cosmic side. And so bringing them in through a dimensional door that they may open during Avengers could be a good way to introduce the cosmic side. It's simple. We used the quantum realm, and then it opened a door to another dimension, and the elementals caught in. Something even simple like that would be cool, because no, they're not often seen. And then you get Mysterio coming in, which begs the question, pun intended, Quentin Beck, for those that don't know. With Mysterio, he comes in, he's like, you don't want any part of this, and we see him fighting them. And the two kind of opposite theories I have is he very well could be, quote unquote, a good guy, and he's trying to fight them. And if so, I think Spidey gets in his way and takes all of his glory. And then that's how he becomes like a Spidey villain.
Makes sense.
The other side could be that Beck is using and is controlling the elementals to try and make himself look better, to try and get him into the light, and then Spidey still comes in. I think they're going to use Mysterio as a way to introduce and bring into the third one the full line of the Sinister Six.
Now, seeing Jake Gyllenhaal in the movie for the first time, or in that trailer, and then also seeing him in the costume, what's your thoughts? What do you think that how he looks? Because I like Jake Gyllenhaal, but when they announced him being Mysterio, I wasn't sure how I felt. I like him, but I've never thought of him as a major superhero player or as someone who I thought would be interested in that. So I thought, to me, it just felt weird, but I enjoyed it. I liked seeing him in it, and I mean, though he only speaks a few words in it, I still enjoyed it.
Well, he comes down in his classic, green smoke. I'm sure we're going to get some purple in there at some point, too. He comes down, and I was very shocked to see him without his helmet at first. I was like, wow, okay. Which makes sense, because the first time they're going to introduce Mysterio from a business and public relations standpoint, marketing standpoint, is to show that it's Jake Gyllenhaal. Because then, right after that, you see him in his full suit, fishbowl and everything. Oh my god, it was so cool. I'm really excited. It looks as comic accurate as it can be without seeming silly. Obviously, they changed a little bit of the color scheme, but to have the full fishbowl head and to have the cape and stuff is really cool, and I'm really excited to see how much of that they use. I'm really hoping Mysterio is in a lot of this movie.
When's the release date on this?
Far From Home comes out July 5th of this year.
Ooh, so it's right in the holiday weekend.
It comes out 2 months after Endgame, which is also 2 months, a month and a half after Captain Marvel. So we're getting 3 movies in basically a 4 or 5 month period, and then we're going to kind of be left to dry again.
I feel like it's just going to be a huge transition swing. I think this is what this is setting up. Obviously, we're ending with Avengers Endgame, and this is really going to spark the next phase for Marvel. I mean, to push out 3 movies like that in just a short amount of time, it's a lot to do, and that's a lot of story that people have to catch up on, because for most people, we usually have that little bit of a lull time between the movies.
Well, and especially with Far From Home, it's the first movie that's after Endgame. It's confirmed that it's taking place after Endgame. It has a big role. And then you're going to basically leave us for another year afterward, kind of like they did with Ant-Man and the Wasp. And I think Nick Fury is going to be used like he was in the first Iron Man, where he came in and was like, I'm starting a team. Except I think he's going to be more integrated into the movie that way. And he's like, I have this idea. I want to start it. What do you think? And then Spidey is kind of the one that goes around and is like, hey, and then that way they can start like the new Avengers or the young Avengers. They can kind of bring them all in using him, which would be awesome. Oh my god. Love Spider-Man.
Yeah, I mean, it's so far out, and we still don't even have these questions answered, but we're already looking past everything in Endgame, and we're just waiting to see what the next phase is going to bring. I'm hoping that we get some clarity, because is there anything announced that they're bringing out specifically after Spider-Man? I know there's going to be a long drop-off, but they haven't announced what the next movie is going to be in line, right?
Correct. They have not. I think they kind of shot themselves in the foot with Spider-Man, but I think they kind of... The thing is I'm sure they needed to announce a second one so that they could... it didn't seem weird when he was in Infinity War. But at the same time, I'm sure they feel like they shot themselves in the foot, because everybody knows that for sure that Spider-Man is going to be back, wherever that ends up falling. But then obviously with the success of Black Panther, you also know that from a business standpoint, there's no way they're not going to make another Black Panther movie. So everybody knows that a lot of those people are going to come back. It's just a matter of how. if they stay dead, it could be an alternate universe. All the crazy theories out there about that. But it's I think Marvel wants us to focus on Captain Marvel right now because that's what's next. And then after that, then we can really get into the anticipation of Avengers. And then finally once we have those answers, we can start delving more into Spider-Man to kind of take those in succession instead of trying to figure out how they all work together.
Now, with the chokehold pretty much and the dominance that Marvel's going to have over us for the next year, or at least the next 6 months, 6 or 7 months, where do you think that puts DC at coming out for their calendar year? How do you think their movies are going to stack up and against? Because, we're having a lot of transition that's going to happen through Marvel, and right now you're seeing the crucial time where a lot of these movies are coming out past Wonder Woman where they figured something out, and now you're going to start seeing those finished products that we've been wanting to see, obviously with the success of Aquaman now, and then you have Shazam coming out as well too this year. It's one of those, what are you expecting on their side of the calendar? You think they're going to make a big splash in 2020 when they're kind of taking a little bit of a layoff, Marvel?
I think they will, because 2019 is currently set up just with Shazam and the Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix that comes out in October. I'm really excited for that too. I think 2020 is going to be a big year because that's when they wanted The Flash to come out. That's when they wanted Cyborg to come out. That's when Wonder Woman is coming out. So they've got a lot boiling. They've got a lot cooking, but it's just a matter of what. Like, there's a bunch of stuff that's been announced but with no date, like a Deathstroke solo movie. It seems like they're going more solo movies now, and I think that's the best route for them to go because I don't think that they're going to do necessarily a Justice League movie anytime soon because they understand that they need people to understand who these characters are before they throw them all together.
That sounds perfect. Anything else that you want to talk about with the Spider-Man trailer? I want to hear a few more of these series if you have them. Anything else that you want to care to break down?
Well, fun fact, Mysterio was actually the third, I believe, villain introduced kind of in a background way. He was a henchman that was believed to be demons. He actually ended up being one of those henchmen. He was the third villain, supervillain to be unearthed, I guess you could call it, after Vulture and the Tinkerer, which we saw in Homecoming. So it seems like they're kind of bringing out villains the way they were in the comics, which is obviously really cool. You can thank Kevin Feige for that. Definitely not Amy Pascal. Then obviously the next kind of big person they got to have is Dr. Octopus. They could do it, they could not do it. It really depends. Obviously we've seen a Dr. Octopus with Spider-Man 2 and Alfred Molina, but I think if they can bring Doc Ock in to the third movie, they could use Mysterio to gather around all the others and use Doc Ock to break into the prison, get all of them out, and now you have Sinister Six.
It's almost like you're reading his mind.
Once you get the Rhino. That's honestly, I hope they're reading my mind because that's what I've got. Obviously, I'm sure they're gonna come out with something much better than that. But those are my 2 cents and 10 cents. But I'm really excited to see Mysterio. I've wanted him in a Spider-Man movie for the last 10 years, and even Sam Raimi was going to toss him into his fourth one before it got scrapped. So it's about time Mysterio had his due, and I'm really excited that Kevin Feige is at the helm to give us the best Mysterio possible.
Now here's hope that maybe for the Super Bowl we'll get another cool trailer. Maybe we'll get something for Captain Marvel. Maybe we'll get something for Endgame. I'm thinking Endgame might happen Super Bowl weekend. Or Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah, it'll be 2 months away.
Yeah, very big possibility that they might drop it then because they want the whole world watching. But I'm excited for what Marvel's got coming up.
Yeah, honestly, this year in general is going to be big. Obviously, Marvel's got some big stuff, but you got Glass that just came out, and obviously everything else that's planned this year. That it's just going to be a busy year, and I'm excited for it.
Oh, absolutely.
Keep an eye out for Glass and any other news that happens to come out before we get a chance.
Yep, and if not, we're going to, like I said, keep an eye out on our True Detective podcast that we're going to have out every Friday, and then we're going to be working on more stuff for you guys, and hopefully you enjoyed.
With that being said, thanks for tuning in. As always, I'm B. Frank.
And I'm Travis.
And we are worth the admission. See you next week.